Welcome to our Lent devotion for this year. I want to start with the song we sang Sunday. Excuse the dogs barking; they'll settle down here in a minute. Jesus walked this lonesome valley. He had to walk it by himself. Oh, nobody else could walk it for him. He had to walk it by himself. We have to walk this lonesome valley. You got to walk it by yourself. Oh, nobody else can walk it for you. You gotta walk it by yourself. You must go and stand your trial. You must stand it by yourself. Oh, nobody else can stand it for you. You've got to stand it by yourself. You gotta walk that lonesome valley. You gotta walk by yourself. Oh, nobody here can walk it for you. You gotta walk it by yourself. Our theme for this study is pause, from the book Pause, Spending Lent with the Psalms, Elizabeth Caldwell. I want to begin just by reading that psalm as it appears in the New Revised Standard Updated Edition, and then we'll read it a little bit later in another edition. To you, O Lord, I lift up my soul. O my God, in you I trust. Do not let me be put to shame. Do not let my enemies exult over me. Do not let those who wait for you be put to shame. Let them be ashamed who are wantonly treacherous. Make me know your ways, O Lord. Teach me your paths. Lead me in your truth and teach me. For you are the God of my salvation. For you I wait all day long. Be mindful of your mercy, O Lord, and of your steadfast love, for they have been from of old. Do not remember the sins of my youth or my transgressions. According to your steadfast love, remember me, for the sake of your goodness, O Lord. Good and upright is the Lord, therefore he instructs sinners in the way. He leads the humble in what is right, and teaches the humble his way. All the paths of the Lord are steadfast love and faithfulness for those who keep his covenant and his decrees. For your name's sake, O Lord, pardon my guilt, for it is great. Who are they who fear the Lord? He will teach them the way that they should choose. They will abide in prosperity, and their children shall possess the land. The friendship of the Lord is for those who fear them, for he makes his covenant known to them. My eyes are ever toward the Lord, for he will pluck my feet out of the net. Turn to me and be gracious to me, for I am lonely and afflicted. Relieve the troubles of my heart and bring me out of my distress. Consider the affections of my trouble and forgive all my sins. Consider how many are my foes and with what violent hatred they hate me. O guard my life and deliver me. Do not let me be put to shame, for I take refuge in you. May integrity and uprightness preserve me. I wait for you. Redeem Israel, O God, out of all its troubles. It was about exactly 5 years ago that we found out it was another Wednesday. It was a Wednesday on the 11th that we found out everything was shutting down. I remember making the decision to do Lenten study this way online, and I was grateful that I had the experience of doing those things and the tools to do them, but it was a hard time. It was a hard time, and it was a time that we felt um, not at home. The German word for it is unheimlich. It was uncanny time. It was a time of strangeness, a time of not knowing how to negotiate things, not knowing what was going on. I've seen a couple articles today about how it's changed our society forever and not in good ways, how we've become more isolated since COVID, how we've become uh, less less involved in community, how we've shunned our neighbors even more and more. That COVID not only drove us inside, but drove us inside our own spheres, our own concerns, and kind of drove us away from community. And as long as we much as we missed and longed for that community, it just has not recovered in quite the same way. And that's a hard that's a hard thing. It's been a hard 5 years. Um, Today, I spend time thinking about the people that um, the funerals I had for people that died of COVID. I think of the displaced and postponed funerals and memorials. The first thing I ever did before the first Sunday here in Hiawatha was help with a memorial for Maxine Corbett, who had died the year before. Um, so I just wanted to lift that up in prayer this morning or this evening and put that out there. Um, so our theme here um, in this first week of Lent is paths. The overall theme of this is pause, to take some time and just take some time out of our busy lives and try, as I said, to get going and to get better connected with God in this season of Lent. Elizabeth Caldwell begins her introduction. She says this. She says, "Consider these words: running to the next thing, to-do list, pause, interruption, wait for it, slow down, keep going, stop." And she asks, which of these define the pace of your daily life, either by describing your current reality or expressing what you most need? And many of us need just a pause button, just an opportunity to see what's on that screen. Take a look at that. See if that's something we want to continue with, or if we need to do something else. Lent is a season that we usually associate with fasting, of giving things up, but we're also invited to enter the path of discipleship in this season. And in addition to giving things up, there's also the Lenten practice of taking things up. This can work for individuals as well as for other people. Have a video call or a chat with a friend that you normally wouldn't talk to. Take that. Combine maybe your fasting with taking something up. So instead of just um, skipping a meal or skipping um, a delicacy that you like for Lent, share that with someone else. Share that with the food bank, or give fast and give the money you would spend to a charity. You know, kind of an interesting thing that I did one year was I didn't eat meat, but at the same time I donated money to Heifer International so that other people in third world countries could have goats or cows or pigs and chickens and things. The point is just to move through Lent a little bit more thoughtfully. And that's what our aim is on this journey. We began Ash Wednesday with that great Psalm 51, the desire for a clean heart. And I hope you attended to that on that day. Today we move to Psalm 25. Psalm 25 is ties together with what I talked about Sunday about navigating our way and losing our way. It's about paths. Sometimes our path is very clear. Sometimes we can barely see the path. Sometimes the roads are clear and sometimes they're not. Sometimes our GPS gives us a good warning about where we need to turn, and sometimes we don't recognize what the GPS is telling us. That happened to me today, by the way. I got to see some streets in St. Joseph I'd never been down before, and that was, as I said Sunday, it was more of an adventure than a catastrophe. It was not a catastrophe. Hopefully, you picked up a study guide at the church and some questions to attend to in this in this season. We read the psalm. I just want to share a few of those questions. First, I want to ask for you to consider: is there a path you followed through life that has been consistent? And has there been a path you followed that has taken you in unexpected directions? Everybody's life and life path is different. I've made um, several radical left turns in my life, uh, and ended up, four left turns, and you end up right where you were to begin with. I started out wanting to be a minister, and I ended up being a minister, but I took a wild, inconsistent path to get there. But there have been consistent things in my life. God's call has been a consistent call in my life, even though it's led me in places I never thought I would go. Um, my family and my marriage has been a consistent pull of my life, although our relationship has changed through the decades and through the challenges and that we have faced. And I'm sure it's changed for you all as well. When we look at Psalm 25, I think one of the first things I want to point out is that if you have that before you in whatever version you have, um, this is a psalm that's it's an acrostic, which means um, each stanza begins with a different letter of the Hebrew alphabet. One commentator wrote that A to Z, God is God, and I think that's a good way to put it. A to Z, God is God. The reason they did that was some say it was for a mnemonic device to make it easier to memorize, or because it was used in ritual or ritual prayer. Um, but that's the outward appearance. Now, what we might want to ask ourselves is what the psalmist is asking for God, and what are some of the themes present in this song. Now, the author, the psalmist, attributes this to David. And so, what exactly is David confessing or acknowledging? I think right now, what I'd like to do, I'm going to try this anyway, is to read you this psalm from a different version. And that version is from um, Robert Alter's No, we're not going to do that. I love the attributes of God here that your ways, O Lord, inform me, your paths instruct me. Good and upright is the Lord, therefore he guides offenders on the way. He leads the lowly in justice and teaches the lowly his way. That's the translation by Robert Alter, who I love to refer to. He's a linguist and really catches the poetic meter and the poetic structure of the Psalms. The Psalms are poems, but unlike poems in English, their poetic structure isn't a rhyming structure and it's not a metrical structure. It's usually couplets or triplets of similar words, similar notions, similar ideas. And so it's very idea based, the structure. I think that's what appeals to me. Um, so there's some differences between the New Revised Standard Version and how um, others have translated that. The Common English Bible, for instance, says the Lord is good and does the right thing and teaches sinners which way they should go. God guides the weak to justice, teaching them his way. Your roads, God, let me know them. Your pathways, help me recognize them from the rest. You are gentle and straightforward, guiding those who stray on the path, leading the humble to walk in justice, teaching the willing the holy road. And that's from Pamela Greenberg's version of the Psalms. God wants to, according to the psalmist, to teach us, to show us the way. Not just as a teacher, but I think as a pathfinder, as a guide. I had some friends I used to work with who um, Wally was a pathfinder for the Air Force in Vietnam, who would jump in and illuminate or mark targets for the airstrikes. A vital way for us to find our way is to have a pathfinder. Invaluable, invaluable. I'd like for you to think about the paths that you have followed in your life, your religion, your paths of faith, and how they were modeled. I know that in my own household, um, they were modeled through service. Some of my fondest childhood memories actually were when my dad. My dad was a youth leader in our church when I was about 6 or 7, and I just loved hanging out with the big kids, and I remember that and doing the ice cream socials and doing all those service projects that the youth leader and the youth did in those days, and later on, my dad served as either the finance secretary or the treasurer or the chair of the finance committee for years and years and years. My mom sang in the choir. They just service and service to the church and devotion to the church was the example they set for me, and they encouraged me when I was young to participate. Um, and so that's the path I got. Now, not everybody gets that path of participation um, from from the church, um, but there we were. Um, in your worship questions, I wanted to know, now that you've read this prayer for guidance and deliverance, what are your own prayers for leading or rescue? I invite you to write those down and speak them to God. They don't have to be in the form of a psalm or very bright or rhyme or poetic, but think about how you want God to lead you. If God could drop a atlas at your feet, what would you have Him say to you? What would you have God say to you in that? I been working with someone to help me see what I want as I navigate this path to retirement, and my goal and my prayer is to leave well, um, and to be ready to leave, and for the church to be equipped for me to leave, and not relieved for me to leave, but so that we can part wishing each other well. Um, and It's not something I can easily do on my own. I've leaned into having help do that, and daily praying helps that a lot. One way that I do that, and way that I would invite you to do that, is to pause. Pause and make sure that you're on the path that God is setting for you. Pause and think about your life and the paths you've taken. Do you want a do-over? Consider the people most significant in your life who've been a model for you, who've made the holy road available to you. and then sit and think and pause and ask God for guidance. If you picked up your worship material or your study materials, you'll notice on one side uh, there is, well, it looks like a maze, but it's actually a finger labyrinth. And a labyrinth is a way that we can contemplate with our bodies, that we can move our bodies and work our way into finding where God is leading us by following the labyrinth and praying. And of course, you notice we don't get to the end in the fastest way possible. As a matter of fact, we go quite a long way in and out and around and back and forth through the different quadrants of that labyrinth. You might want to take your finger and use this as a finger labyrinth. And it's not a maze. It's not designed for us to figure out the best way to get the answer or to the middle. But it's a way to wander around until we find the answer on our own. So this week, try this finger labyrinth, follow it around, or just focus your gaze on it, or focus your gaze on a window and take in the movement that you see around it. And each day, maybe at the same time, begin with a quiet shutting off of all the noise in your mind and all the distractions, and take a deep breath. As you follow a path with your eyes, your fingers, your legs, notice what's around you. Tune your ears to the sounds that you hear. Focus on the people and the places that have contributed to your life of faith. Think of them, remember them, thank them, and thank God for them. As we begin the season of Lent, let's think about the people for whom we would like to pray and name them as you walk with your fingers or your legs or observe movement from your chair. Are there people you know who are searching for paths for their life? Name them. You may know people who are already abandoned the path of faith in which they were raised and are searching for another way to experience God's steadfast love. Name them. Pray for them. Close your time each day this week with this verse from Psalm 25. That is verse 4. Make your ways known to me, Lord. Teach me your paths. I'm going to close with another song. This is one that one of my big Vintage Park heads. They love this at Vintage Park. So, gospel song from the 50s by Vestal Goodman. Sometimes we think about those paths as only being bright and sunny paths, but God finds us wherever we are, whatever paths we are on. God walks the dark hill, the highways and byways. He walks on the billow of life's troubled sea. He walks in the cold, dark night, the shadows of midnight. God walks the dark hill just to guide you and me. God walks the dark hill, to guide my footsteps. He walks everywhere, by night and by day. He walks in the silence, on down the highway. God walks the dark hill to show me the way. God walks in the storm, the rain and the sunshine. He walks on the shadow through the shimmering light. Helps us walk up the mountain so high, across the rivers and valleys. God walks the dark hill, 'cause he loves you and I. God walks the dark hill to guide my footsteps. He walks everywhere, by night and by day. Walks in the silence, on down the highway. God walks the dark hill to show me the way. Friends, as we go through this week, remember that God walks all our paths, guides all our paths, illumines all our paths, even the paths through the darkest passages of our lives. We know it's true. We know it's true. Because 5 years ago today, we didn't know how dark things would get, and here we are. Praying for all of you this week. Continue to pray Psalm 25. Next week, our psalm will be Psalm 27. And I look forward to sharing a little bit about Psalm 27 with you next week. Good night.